Welcome back to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I'm your host, Ralitza, and we are joined again for day two of this three-part series by Carla Crivaro. I'm so happy you're back. I'm so excited to dive right in and let's talk about baby, because apparently I'm getting blocked when I write anything remotely close to the word.
Yeah. S X.
Yeah, right. I tried that. It didn't work.
Does that
So
not work?
that is getting even more creative of blocking human conversations.
I think AI is getting really good though at spotting things, because I had written like a post and then I put it into like a post for social media with the word with P and N at the end, that the
Hmm.
content that people watch.
Hmm.
Um, and I put it into chat to like just shuffle some things around in there, and it understood what I was saying. So I think because people said to me, "Hi," because I'm like, it's difficult getting my content out there unless like people come looking for it on social
Right.
media. It can be quite difficult. Um, and someone said, "Oh, other people are doing like misspells and that sort of thing." I think now, because there's so much AI, it gets
Hmm.
caught anyway. Like they figured out, they can see that we are trying to come up with new and inventive and creative ways. So,
Hmm. It
but
sees
we
the
shall continue.
context. It sees the
Yeah.
context too. It's like, well, what else could you be talking about if it's not this? That's really interesting. And actually, that's very concerning. That brings a really good point because if we can't talk about sex, then like it was so taboo for so long. And now it's being filtered out by AI, which now that I say it out loud, I think so many things that we've become accustomed to just normalizing. And I don't think it's okay to normalize this one.
So, can I give you my
Yeah.
perspective on where I
Yeah.
think? So, shame is one of the lowest vibrating emotions, and
Hmm.
shame is the emotion that's really difficult to sit with, which is why when we do something wrong, quite often we want to blame the other person, because that's when couples come to me and they're in conflict,
Hmm.
a lot of it is just like throwing their shame shit everywhere because they did something, they
Hmm.
upset the person, they don't want to feel that discomfort of
Yeah.
hurting someone else unintentionally, because most of the time when we hurt someone, we don't do it intentionally, it's just a bit of an error. And so shame is like so uncomfortable to be with. And if it's an emotion that's uncomfortable to be with, we want to move away from it as much and as quickly as possible.
Hmm.
And so our sexuality, because there is so much shame there, talking about it, owning it,
Hmm.
all of the things,
Hmm.
shame and money are the biggest ones that people have shame over,
Hmm.
because that's why people have, they'll spend money on a car or a house that they can't really afford because of the
Hmm.
shame of like owning something smaller, because they want to keep up and, appearances with
Hmm.
whoever it is that they're
Hmm.
worried that's, judging them.
Right.
And so when we feel and we have that experience of shame and we're constantly running from it, it makes us really easy to control.
That's right. Yeah.
But if you imagine a world where people were that could live without shame and they could own the darkest parts of themselves and say, yeah, I'm a human being, I make mistakes, I don't always get it right, I have this really unusual kink, but I own it, or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm not having orgasms, or I can't keep my erection, or whatever it might be. If
Hmm.
we were in a world where we could like talk openly and freely and fully own that, what have people got to use against us to put us down and
Hmm.
belittle us and say that we're not enough?
Yep.
And so reclaiming your sexuality, being able to sit with the discomfort of the shame and the judgment and all of the things,
Hmm.
that is the source of liberation.
That is our superpower. And that is why it's so important to be able to be vulnerable. And I think that's the other side of it. Speaking on these topics, people are very vulnerable, right? They take it to mean something is wrong with them, they're broken. We, as a collective, are not healthy, not safe, right? We're going to be judged. We're going to be kicked out of society if we have certain desires or certain inabilities. And, there's even a whole definition of being asexual if you don't experience pleasure. And I know pleasure is something that came up for you as well to talk about today. So you're right. And so do you feel like keeping these topics out of our sort of conversations when it comes to AI, because a lot of people are using AI for a lot of things, almost everything. And so do you feel like when AI blocks that, it blocks our ability to be open and be vulnerable? It's almost like an unconscious telling you that it's not okay to talk about this. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's like,
mhm.
I was just going to say, like, I'm okay with talking about these things,
Yeah.
but it's taken some practice to get there because, I grew up Catholic, Southern Italian heritage. I was definitely not confident talking about sex and was very much the person that would lie there passively waiting to be told what to do next because I just didn't feel comfortable initiating anything. And so, it has taken a journey to get here. I was featured a couple of times, actually, my own personal story in the UK press online, which felt really, really vulnerable because I have everything on my own website. Like if people go to my website, like I share all of my own like failings in inverted commas in relationships, mistakes that I've made, all of the stuff. But then for it to go like in national press was extremely uncomfortable because also I think with a lot of the things, we don't know how people are going to take it. So right. I didn't read the comment section because it's always good not to read the comment section.
That's very safe. So important.
So, but I got a couple of emails and messages from people on LinkedIn on my email as well, saying that they'd read the article and, they were really inspired. And I know there would have been other people going, oh my God, who does she think she is? Slut, this, that, and the other. Totally missing the nuance and importance of the story. But there's also like this sense of, I'm not here for everybody. Not everyone's going to get it. And I don't need to convince people.
That's right.
Like, sorry, my cat's here. Let me just pop her outside the door because
no
otherwise I'm just sat on a birthing ball, and if she tries to climb up it, she'll pop it, and then you'll just see me like gradually go down.
That sounds dangerous. That sounds dangerous.
She's already popped one ball, so
oh no. And I'm just gonna adjust my light quickly. But yes. So it's really interesting actually that, and these are authentic conversations and things are gonna come up and things are gonna happen. But it's funny that that the cat came in right in that moment, because I really do trust when things happen the way that they happen. Even in conversations when we're having conversations about these kind of topics. I think it's just interesting because it shows the resonance in the field, right? I think it shows us that this is uncomfortable for a lot of people, and that's true for all vulnerable conversations. The reason they're so vulnerable is because we've judged them as unsafe. We've judged them as, oh, someone might misunderstand this or take it and use it against me, right? And so consciously and unconsciously, and I guess that's kind of the point. I think when we share, what's our inner workings, the things that make us uncomfortable, that is the freedom. That is the part of vulnerability. That is, shattering the airwaves with our truth is so important, because no matter what people say on the outside, that's still kind of like a societally created expectation that they're going to react this way. But the truth is, from a woman's perspective, when you share your experience, you are speaking to the hearts and lived experience of so many people, and a lot of people whose knee-jerk reaction is, oh, she's this or that, labels, right? Projections of our own insecurities, because that's really what happens when we judge, right? And when we express things about others, it's actually that we're judging ourselves. And so it's a really beautiful invitation to sit with that and to question, okay, what within me is uncomfortable with that? What makes me want to project that level of discomfort onto someone else? Like you were saying earlier, this is the perfect full circle moment, right? To catch ourselves and say, okay, if there's something about this conversation around sex that I'm not comfortable with, I want to skip the podcast. I invite you to stay because you might find parts of yourself here today. And yeah, it's so juicy. I always say that the divine union partner of authenticity is vulnerability. And without one, you can't have the other. Without actually cracking yourself open to be vulnerable and saying, you know, me too, or what if, and how about, and, you know, this is my experience and how is it different or similar? And just getting really curious together as a human, you know, consciousness, really. I think that is where we together can find the truth, because not every person's experience is the same. And, you know, some people, you know, don't want to have orgasms, they say. But that
Yeah,
makes
who
me,
says that they don't? Who says they don't want to have an orgasm?
so the people that are like defined as asexual, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about that. I'm so curious, because in the diagnostic space of women's health, obstetrics and gynecology, you know, my chosen specialty, and you know, with pregnancy and so many of these sort of, it's become normalized that it's normal not to enjoy, not to have pleasure, not to have a desire. What's that about? Let's talk about it, because it's never
Yeah,
sat right in my
it's
system.
it's interesting that you said that. So I did my men's sexuality training a few years ago, and we have like a group on a platform called Signal, which is a bit like WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was, and this was a conversation that came up about asexuality, and and so you know there was a link shared to this organization that talks about it and promotes it. And as I was reading through it, you know, was reading it. I was like, oh my God, this was me like 15 years ago. Like,
Mm.
because there are different spectrums of asexuality, and
Mm-hmm.
also like certain elements where it's more in one area or less in another. And so, you know, it's not just like all of these boxes are ticked. But the things that were being shared in that article, I was like, it was not article, it was a website specifically around asexuality. I was like, oh my God, that was me. So I would
Mm.
have labeled myself, because I didn't initiate sex. I didn't really desire it. Once it got going,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'd have an orgasm, and it'd be you know, it would be okay.
Mm-hmm. Kind of
But I never like,
mechanical.
yeah, like I'd have orgasms. It'd be good, but I never, never really had like much desire. I didn't really fancy people. Like I never looked at someone and thought, oh God, I want to have sex with you. Like that, you know,
Mm.
I never experienced any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so had I read that website 15 years ago, I just would have gone, oh, that's who I am, and put a pin
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Right.
Um, and
Label
then
me,
when,
right?
yes,
It's like,
yes,
okay,
yes.
I am this now, and that's normal, and that's okay, and I
And
accept it.
that's why labels I'm not that keen on, because
Right.
I think they can limit us. Because I work with people as well around attachment, and people go, oh, I've got an anxious attachment. And it's like, let's not put a label on it. Let's look at the
Yeah.
different patterns of behavior. Because my own personal
Mm-hmm.
experience with attachment and what I've seen with other people is it's fluid. It really depends on who you're relating with. And
Absolutely.
so and so, you know, I think that there can be an issue with labels, in the fact that it does then, because it's like, well, this is me. I can't do this because this is the label that I have. So I'm going to limit myself. Where it's like, where can I get curious and stretch the limitations, or experience things, and see how things are different? Because when I, we shared in the last podcast my journey, and there was like this transition from like chronic anxiety into what if there is more. I started my training, 4 months of like deep dive into my own sexuality. And it was that like switched something in me, that then I like, really desired sex. And then, and then I would fancy people and look at them and go, oh,
Interesting.
and yeah, and I had never had that before. Like that hadn't happened. And so, anyone who's listening who's very much like, no, I'm asexual, because I know that someone now is going to be listening and they are going to be thinking, I'm asexual. This person doesn't understand asexuality. You're saying that it doesn't exist and all of those things. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, like, there may be situations where people think that, because I also displayed those traits. And if there were different situations and opportunities and like potential to get curious, remove the label and just experiment, what could be different? And I think that's, I'm in a magazine this week in the UK, and it's like, sex after 40, is it good or not? And I said yes, and there was somebody saying no, and like she preferred to have a cup of hot chocolate. And I'm like, and she was talking about like foreplay not being good, and she's single and the men aren't that, that great. And I'm like, it's not the sex that's not good after 40, it's the conditions around it. Because she was saying that she goes to bed too late, so she's tired, and it's like,
that's right.
Well, clearly you're not looking after yourself, you're not doing the self-care. Where can you let go of things? Is everything that you're doing important? Because the big mistake that women make is we said this before we started recording, didn't we? That we say yes to everything and take it all on. And it's like, how can you actually let some of that go and do the things that light you up, that nourish you, that make you feel good? Because I think one of the reasons why I didn't feel desire is because I was freaking exhausted and anxious. Like, of course my body's not wanting to. I mean, obviously sexuality is like procreation. It didn't feel safe. It didn't feel that's why desire wasn't accessible to me.
That's right, exactly. Where is that carnal need for survival within us? That's what, that it's truly where it comes from, is exactly what you said, procreation. And that was what was spinning in my head, because some people maybe are not meant to procreate, but therefore, does that mean they're not meant to experience pleasure? That's a different one, right? When we separate those two, we're not just these, sort of animalistic carnal beings. We have consciousness as humans, right? We have the ability to actually start to question and get curious and understand, where does it come from? Sometimes it's from a traumatic experience, right? Sometimes, as you said, with anxious attachments, accepting that as a label as ourselves, accepting that, oh, I function like this, is actually such a strong self-rejection to our intuition. No, the truth is, you have energetic sensitivity around the people that you're choosing, because they're not worthy of your trust. I'm just saying, I'm just going to put that one out there. And let's look at the patterns of, but that was me too. Why do we keep choosing people we don't trust? Why do we keep choosing untrustworthy partners? Okay, that is an interesting source of our anxious attachment. Why don't we talk about that? Because, around certain people, suddenly we don't have an anxious attachment.
Yeah, because with my ex-husband, so I, my label with my ex-husband was definitely securely attached, because we were non-monogamous for a couple of years. So, I didn't feel under threat at any point then. And, we had great conversations. So yeah, I was definitely securely attached. And then, I got into a relationship, and it was trust. And the lack of trust came from the inconsistency in behavior, and then like the defensiveness and the shutdown, and then the nervous system feels dysregulated a lot of the time, walking on eggshells. yeah, and it's all of that, and that's where it came from, you know. And it's really great learning, because both of those experiences happened when I am in a place of conscious awareness of it, because that relationship with the boyfriend was very similar to things that I had in my 20s, but I didn't remember the patterns that played out. I just remember, oh, that guy cheated on me, that guy gaslighted and also cheated on me, you know, but I don't really remember the details. So it was great information for me to experience both, because one, I can support my own clients because I've been in both and I felt both, and how a safe relationship and one that isn't safe, how they both feel. And it's also great information for me, because now, you know, I'm currently single, but, you know, looking for a partner for the future. Like, I know in my body what it feels like to feel safety, and how a safe person is going to speak to me, respond to the things that I bring them. Like, I got experience now of both sides. And so I see that as that was a time of like learning, of opportunity. Yeah, so I walk away with that reframe.
I really love that reframe. And again, a call to action to the audience is just to check in, because I too have been in that place where I think, oh, there's something wrong with me if I'm anxious around this person, or there's something wrong with me that I don't care what this person is doing as much as I cared about the other person. And, you know, when you change relationships and your nervous system does something different, or, you know, when you've always grown up in that sort of helicopter parenting situation and you feel like that is love. So you want control over your person, and you create this energy around the relationship of like, this is too much. And then the other person actually does start dodging and avoiding because it's too much control, not because they don't love you or you're not worthy or it means something about you. And then suddenly we have this different dynamic. And so, yeah, I guess the call to action is really to look at what kind of dynamics are going on from inside your body. Number one, is there this sense of like trying to dodge and evade, sort of that avoidant attachment? Or is there this sense of trying to like grasp and constantly like be calling and texting and wondering, you know, that I know you feel it in your system too, because it's one of those things that comes up so quickly. And, you know, what's going on within me? Where am I sensing something and self-rejecting? And I think it's a really beautiful actually way to kind of lead into the conversations around how do we get from this place within ourselves, because forget about the other person for just a moment, because, you know, taking personal responsibility is so important. But if we are in this place of this dysregulation, I mean, you mentioned a few things around, you know, our sleep, nourishing ourselves, you know, saying no, because we keep saying yes to all the things, you know, taking responsibility for way too much. So I love that, because in my coaching, that those are kind of some of the first steps: slowing down, you know, saying no to everything that you can say no to, weeding out your calendar, weeding out your social media. That's what I'm doing right now. By the way, if I stop following you, it's not because I don't like you. It's simply because we're doing this energetic management piece of like, I'm just getting rid of everyone. And I'm actually sending messages. It's going to take forever, but I'm sending messages to people, letting them know, hey, if you want to stay in touch, just message me. I'll follow you back. But I'm just doing this sort of like, who am I actually connected to? And maybe it's this, you know, I'm turning 40 next year, and I actually found this amazing Korean skin line. I realized I have never taken good care of my skin, right? And so when we start to say no to the things that are not aligned, we start to attract and have space for the things that actually are aligned, the things that actually belong in our system, you know, as our mind, body, spirit, and our interconnected sort of energetic system, the matrix that we live in, right? So I just want to frame it up as like, we get to choose, actually. We get to create the life that we get to live. And so when it comes to pleasure, I'm like, I want to experience pleasure until my last living day. So how do you lead clients to coming from a place of labeling and judging and normalizing that it's okay to live life without desire or pleasure, or, like that sexy, successful, like I remember when it came to me, the essence of sexy, successful, it was exactly that. It was reclaiming my right to feel that desire within me for something. It was not about sex. It's still not about sex. It's about fully embodying the full range of human existence, number one, because this is a lot around the feminine being, and then
I just
experience.
as you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I did it. I did in my stories the other day around this,
Yeah.
around sexiness, because there's this idea of what sexiness is. Oh, where is it? I don't think it's, oh yeah, here. Right. So I'm glad that you've mentioned this. So sexy, a lot of people, when they don't have embodied sexiness, thinks it's like, I need to do this to my face, and I need to wear these clothes, and I need to like look a particular way to feel sexy. And it's not that at all. Like sexiness can, well, sexiness is like you said, it's something that's within yourself. And the other day, I think it was Monday. What day are we on? Wednesday. It was Monday.
Wednesday.
So on Monday, I didn't want to wear any makeup. And I was just like, but I'm still feeling really sexy. And I'm feeling like, I was like wearing cozy clothes. And I was like, I'm feeling that sort of sexy. Facebook might throw us off now. I'm feeling that sort of sexy that, like a morning orgasm in a warm bed type of sexy that's like snuggly. Like, that's the sort of sexy that I was feeling that day. Which was like, oh, this is really interesting. Then I sat down and I tuned into the different flavors of sexy that I had felt and experienced in myself at different times. So I created a list. I don't know if it's exhaustive or
I
not.
love that. Okay, let's hear it. Oh, I'm excited. I'm just gonna, so if you're driving, I recommend you pull over. If you're multitasking, I recommend you stop. And I invite you into this experience. And if you are doing any of those things, it's okay. But I just want to invite you to come back to this at some point today, tomorrow, set a reminder, make sure that you make it a priority, because this is gonna, I can already tell my system is like, everyone needs to experience this. So pause and come back to this. Sorry to jump in. I go on. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was like, what different types of flavors of sexiness have I experienced? And if people want to put like in the comments on Facebook, or if they want to send a message, I don't know, on YouTube, they'll be able to put comments. I think they can on Spotify and stuff as well.
It's everywhere. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. We're YouTube, we're Facebook, we're Instagram. We're going to be everywhere with this information because it's absolutely necessary. Pop it in the comments. Yes.
Yay! Want to hear the vibe. So one is like high vibe and energetic, and that's often the sexiness that I tend to embody, because I'm like, I like dancing, I like going out, lots of movement. So high vibe and energetic is sort of like the easy one for me to get into. Then there's like magnetic and head turning, and that can be like, sometimes I'll be walking down the road, no one is there, but I feel like the world's watching me type of sexy.
And even a lot of people are very uncomfortable in that space.
Yeah, but no one could be there. I could even walk through my own house and just be feeling this like head turning magnetic type of sexy, where it feels like everything's coming towards me.
That's it.
Then playful and cheeky. So like, this is like the more flirtatious type of sexy vibe, where where you're probably a little bit more playful with people, I can't think of any of the words. A
little more lighthearted, like more lighthearted. Yeah. We can laugh at ourselves. We can kind of laugh at our, our resistances. I have this really deep, like, fear of rejection. So I never initiate because I don't want to be rejected. It's that, right? So being able to be playful with it, it's like, oh, we can joke about that, right? I can, shake things up a bit and not feel so tight in myself. Yeah, I love that.
Another one is confident and commanding. So
Mm.
it's like almost this, like almost this presence of dominating sexiness, which which like you walk into a room and you have people's attention, and it's sexy, but it's not like you're being provocatively dancing or anything like that. It's like this, it's like a commanding and a confident type of sexy. Then there's like the dark and mysterious. So, that one's probably like a little bit more, people might be leaning in more curious because there's something that you're like holding back, but it's not because you're holding back from a place of like lack or place of fear, but there's just this like inner strength and knowing, but you're connected to your sexiness in this way. Elegant and polished. So this one's really clear. This is like, and I noticed your room, you've got Audrey Hepburn in the background. So, when I think elegant and polished, like that type of sexy is like Audrey Hepburn, having the cigarette between the lips, looking like, picture perfect.
Almost untouchable.
Yeah. And I can do that only for a short period of time until like, I don't have the ability to stay that composed for that long.
I don't think anyone is supposed to, and I think that's actually an interesting part of the programming that came with that era. Go on. We'll go down that rabbit hole another time.
Then there's like the wild and untamed sexiness. So like this is the woman who's like feels sexy even when she's like angry, when she's like in all of her wildness, her emotions. She's fully embodied in all of like that, those low vibe emotions, but she's owning them and she's just like allowing them to like move through her. So that's the wild and untamed sexiness. And because there have been moments when I've like, I really deeply cried in grief, or I've like done a practice to connect to my anger, but I've just felt so like powerful and sexy as I'm doing it. And so I absolutely, that's one that I've been able to connect to.
So that goes down to the root chakra, releasing and then not holding on to our anger, not holding on to, and I'm not a pro of like chakras or anything like that. But as soon as you said it, that's exactly where I felt it, because I've been told you need to do anger management. And I'm like, don't you shut down my anger. And owning our anger is such a healthy thing because it shows us where our boundaries have been crossed. It shows us where, we've been disrespected. And again, instead of blaming and pointing the finger outwards, I invite anyone who's resonating with this to actually look inwards and ask, why am I not comfortable honoring myself? Because at the end of the day, boundaries and honor are the same thing, but honor is so much more juicy, so much more beautiful to say, okay, what can I do actually, now that I'm recognizing people crossing my boundaries, to honor myself? How can I communicate that this is the way that they can honor me as well? And that feels, I think, a lot more juicy. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I love that. I've only got 2 more.
Yeah.
Well, 3.
Let's do more. Like I just want them all.
So then I've got like sweet and enchanting. So like, this is the type of sexiness when you are in almost like a submissive type of state. So you have that feeling of bringing people into your world, of like that charismatic, but not outwardly charismatic. Charismatic is in drawing people in. Then I have fierce and empowered. So that has flavors of like the wild and untamed, because you've got that ferocity behind you, but the empowered is like almost the grounding element of that. And then the last one is the one that I felt on the Monday, so slow and sensual. So just got out of bed orgasm vibe. So
I love that.
So those were the ones that I was like, yeah, these are the ones that I've experienced, felt. Some I connect to more easily than others, and I tap into more frequently. But yeah, I'd be interested, like, are there any that from that list that like really spoke to you, Ralitza? Or as I was talking with her, any that were like, oh, I have this flavor of sexiness that I'm able to tap into. So
Yeah, I love that question. So I would want to like pose that number one to the audience. But number two, what happened in my nervous system at one point, it was almost this like energy of like, ooh, like this like darkness that kind of came. And I was like, oh, where is that uncomfortable? What's going on with that one? I was really curious. So I'm gonna have to explore that later around one of them because, and again, for the audience, if you're feeling any contraction, any tightness, any sort of that looming kind of fear, that looming feeling of like, oh, this isn't safe. And I want to shut down. I want to go in my shell and I never want to look at this again. I invite you to look at this again with someone who is safe, right? Someone, whether it's a partner, a counselor, a therapist, a coach, somebody who, Carla Crivaro, who does this work. Someone who can really hold it, and instead of putting labels and judgments and saying it's normal for you to be like this, let's just put it back on the shelf, to really open up to it and hold space for it and really kind of feel where that comes from. Where is there a judgment? I think it was a judgment around the dark. What was I imagine it on a wheel.
Dark and mysterious.
Yeah, there's something about dark and mysterious. And mysterious is something that's been kind of normalized for me because I think in my life, I've judged sort of that mysterious as intentionally keeping secrets or holding back. And again, because I was raised very helicoptery, I always felt like I have to say everything. I can't have any secrets. There's nothing that I can keep just for me. And I think that is a beautiful growth edge for me to lean into as I go into this next sort of, embodiment of myself fully. And as I go into this next identity shift into what's possible. We're at a year 9, by the way. Again, not a numerology expert. However, I've heard over and over again that 2025, 2020, going into 26, we're going from a year 9 into a year 1. So we're a lot of people on the planet right now. We are releasing a lot of things. It would serve us to release those judgments. It would serve us to release those patterns. It would serve us to really, purge and get rid of, old clothes that hold on to energy, to get rid of, anything that doesn't feel juicy in our system, anything that we're holding on to as judgments of ourselves or other people, right? Any of these sort of attachments to identity, even, like when we recreate ourselves coming from this place of newness, this place of curiosity, this place of like, what else is actually possible, rather than these kind of like very decided, boundaries. And I love that you shared how many were there? 12? Was it 12? I don't know why I imagine on the clock.
I put 2 words together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There were 10.
10. Okay. So 10 ways of our sexuality. And like you said, maybe there's other people that experience more. And please drop them in the chat because I would love to see this on a wheel, right? And in this new age of a 1 in 2026 is this new age of like, anything is possible actually. Right? Let's get rid of the labels. Let's get rid of yeah.
I was just thinking, so I have a playlist on Spotify, like a striptease playlist.
Okay, can you share that with me?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm thinking,
awesome.
And I'm just thinking, oh wow, like I'm thinking of some of the songs that were popping up into my head. I'm like, oh, I can see them going to these different ones, like the different categories, the different flavors. So yeah, that might be interesting to, because I find music is really good to get me into a particular headspace.
I love that. So I have a question. So I didn't really answer yours. I totally evaded it, and I'm aware of that. I really love the magnetic one, right? Like I love this idea, and also the mysterious one where things are like, it's okay to not tell everything. It's okay to not be like super transparent all the time. it's actually really beautiful. It's actually really sexy and magnetic, and people get curious and they want to kind of like, oh, I want to know more. You know, there's this sort of two sides of vulnerability where, and this is, I think, actually a really an interesting calling forward for anyone who's feeling that sort of, I don't love the label imposter syndrome, because authenticity is all about claiming ourselves. And if we have a vision of anything, that is ours to own. And we just need to like stretch and collapse the timeline so that it works for us. But when we say imposter syndrome, I think it's just us having to overcome this growth edge into claiming who we really are, who we're becoming, right? And there, it's a journey and it's a process. You know, but saying that to say, I think it's really important to just, you know, hold all the attachments lightly, right? And really be generous with ourselves when we're playing in this field of like experimentation, of trying things on, seeing what feels good in our body and our system. And yeah, really questioning our judgments, like, why are these two talking about sex so much? Like, what is their obsession? It's like, okay, liberation, what's going on here?
And if you've got this far, you're obviously interested yourself anyway.
That's right. Exactly. That's a good point. So my question was around like, okay, you mentioned these 10 different sort of archetypes, let's call them, of experiencing our sexuality, experiencing that sexiness. Do you feel that, like, because you said women, do you feel that men also have all of these different flavors of sexy, or do you feel like it's more of a feminine thing and more of
No,
an,
I
yeah.
because the thing is like with because there are the different archetypes for men, aren't there? So there's like the king, warrior, magician, you know, all of those different, the lover. So they have the standard archetypes like we have, because I work with the queen, mother, temptress archetypes a lot with the women that I work with. And so, yeah, men do experience their masculinity and sexuality in very different ways. At least, you know, the men that I've worked with and guided through have had the capacity to tap into various different types. You know, there's like the more primal feeling of sexiness, the one that feels more dominating, the sexiness that feels more like tender and soft. So yeah, men absolutely have the capacity to feel into those different experiences of their own sexuality, their own masculinity, and their own sexiness. Absolutely. It's not something that I've talked about because literally it was something that came to me on Monday of like, oh, different flavors of sexiness. So I've not had the time to sit down and actually have a conversation with any man yet around that.
Yeah.
But if we can feel different archetypes, both of us, men and women, and we can feel different flavors of sexiness as a women, you know, I can absolutely see that men would have that as well, because I've seen that process in their masculinity, you know, around the tenderness, around the all of the things that I was just talking about that my perimenopausal brain is now just like go off. But you know, men are able to tap into those, you know, that primal masculinity, that primal sexual aspect of themselves, that tender part of themselves. Yeah, all of those.
That's so beautiful. And you know what, I want to normalize, because I think especially in our society, and I don't think it's nowadays, I think it's been going on for way too long, and I don't want to you know, kind of project this onto my son, because I have a boy and I think you have also boys, right?
Yeah.
At home. And I think it's really important to remember that whatever society told us about men being this like stoic, and also I feel like there's this judgment that, you know, this collective judgment that men are just one flavor when it comes to sex. Like they're going to get it. I feel like there are so many of those, you know, ways too. And, you know, maybe one day he's feeling, you know, soft in this, and another day he's feeling like, you know, dominant. And so it's, I think it's getting, you know, the invitation, I guess, for men is normalizing that it's okay to want softness. Cause I think that's something our society really doesn't talk too much about. And it's, I think for any couple that has a healthy relationship, I think, you know, that at some points, you know, your partner wants, you know, one level of support, one level of showing up, what man, woman, whatever. But then there are those spaces to hold. And if we are feeling unsafe in our bodies because of an experience we've had in the past, that can actually really get in the way of a relationship, of a healthy relationship. And so, exploring the things that we tend to turn away from and really digging into that together of like, okay, I want to share this vulnerability with you. This thing happened, or again, and not to go into trauma looping, because that's just, going to create PTSD and sort of, that kind of approach of let's talk about the problem until we're blue in the face. You're going to resurface those energies. But the real gift behind it, actually, in a safe space, this is where the emotional mastery comes in, is to actually fully be able to feel your emotions that got trapped in that experience, to be able to fully express them, to be able to actually go to, and actually embody that version of yourself that experienced that unsafeness, and from your essence now give yourself what that version needed. And it's a little bit complicated, especially energetically, if you're shut down. That's why we have somatic coaches. That's why we have somatic therapists, people that do this work. Is tapping into that energy that's stuck is actually such a beautiful gift, because when we are able to unravel and we're able to actually release, it's almost like, coming from being this caged bird in our human experience to suddenly starting to realize that, oh, the cage was open the entire time and I was just afraid to fly out of it. Or, I imagine that picture of the elephant with the chain on a little peg on the ground, and there's this giant elephant, and it's this like fake feeling of being trapped. I feel like that is a lot of us when it comes to possibilities, like in terms of creating, in terms of having a vision and what's possible for us. Truly anything is possible. I always say, if you have a vision of it, it's already yours. Now it's just time to step into it, right? And so, even when it comes to our sexuality, I think a lot of people feel, oh, yeah, oh, that sounds good. That's for them. It's not for me. And I really want to like pop that bubble of, it's not for me. It's possible for everyone if you're willing to get outside of, whether it's your pain body, whether it's your protective mechanisms that keep you safe over here, or, guarded and protected. I would love to talk about the archetypes on the next episode. This has been such a beautiful, juicy conversation. I wonder if you have an invitation for our audience. Yeah, because it's time. We're there.
So it's interesting because as you were talking about like as you were just going through that explanation, then it brought me back to a couple that I was working with, and like her shut down and her like lack of being able to express what she wanted and her boundaries really impacted his ability to step into his like full like masculinity and sexuality. Like he was holding himself back, and yeah, so it's the invitation I'm going to put forward then to the people listening is, how is my behavior, my response, the way that I approach, sex and pleasure, how could that be impacting somebody else's? Because it then gets like in a loop, because then she's wanting him to show up more like a man, is the term that she was using. Yeah. So be more dominating, but he couldn't be dominating because he couldn't trust that she would say yes or no when she needed to.
Or he's trying to protect her, right? Because he feels that she feels unsafe. Back. Yes.
Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, just so noticing, how am I showing up sexually that could actually be, affecting the other person and how they're able to respond to me. So that's the invitation I'll leave you with today.
I love that. Thank you so much, Carla. Wow, I feel like I could watch this over and over and over again and go into so many different rabbit holes within myself, but also in topics and conversations. This was amazing. Thank you for sharing so generously. And thank you for saying yes to yourself so you can step into this world and really be able to hold space for these beautiful, vulnerable, sexy conversations. So we can
Yeah, and thank
feel a
you.
little more human. Yeah.
And thank you for your bravery for bringing these conversations as well, and like knowing it's a place that needs to be going to, because it's easy for people like myself that work in the field to have these
Mhm.
conversations and bring them on board, but it does require like a certain amount of bravery if you're not in that field specifically to say,
Mhm.
okay, let's talk about it. So yeah, celebrating you, Ralitza.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is where the Sexy Successful Sisterhood, there's a Facebook group. It's private. It's for ladies to really to have these conversations, to say, "Oh, I heard that podcast and it really struck me kind of, I'm uncomfortable with it." Please share that in the group so that we can normalize that it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay that you have this, and let's talk about it. Let's, hold that safe space where we can dig into it and get curious and start to kind of release the cage, open the cage up a little bit and realize, oh, we can actually, spread our wings and there's a different range here. So, Carla, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, from like all the spaces and places that we exist. I'm so excited for episode 3 next week. It's happening at 6 a.m. Pacific time. What time is it for you that we started?
2 p.m. GMT.
2 p.m. in the UK and all the other times in between. But we hope that you tune in live on Facebook. It is going to be on my wall. And then it's also going to be posted to YouTube, to Instagram, I'll figure out how to do it on TikTok. We're going to be on Apple Podcasts. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be everywhere. So we are getting out of the closet when it comes to talking about sexuality and really, yeah, digging in and diving into our juiciness. So Carla, thank you again. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too. Amazing.
Take care.
All right.
And bye to our audience.